Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 28th of November. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barrie. Well, it looks like the sun is shining in Glasgow, Joshua.
It's quite nice today, Derek, for a change. How is it your way? As good as it is here?
It's actually not too bad. It's a brisk and chilly morning down here in Warrington, but it's bright, so that's all you can ask for, I think, at this time of year. But let's talk about all things Rangers, folks. This time last week, we were breaking the news that Giovanni van Bronckhorst was dismissed after just over a year in charge. And today we're going to talk about the new man that's going to replace Van Bronckhorst and an emotional return for Michael Beale. Before we do that, as you can see the little ticker below, we've got that Black Friday offer on just now. So many of you taking advantage of it, and why not? Just £1 for 6 months worth of coverage. It's our best deal ever. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details to sign up. You won't be disappointed, folks, and with the news today and what have you, it really is a cracking deal. To take advantage of all the great stuff on there. Over the weekend, we had some fabulous pieces on. Johnny did a piece on Van Bronckhorst, of course. We'll talk about his Instagram statement that he released yesterday. There's an interview there with Gordon Petric, who's got his Partizan Belgrade side really flying at the moment at the top of the Serbian league. So loads to get your teeth stuck into, not to mention a load of content on incoming Rangers boss Michael Beale. It's believed that he could be announced as early as today. Reports suggesting a 3.5-year deal has been agreed. He's agreed personal terms. He's missed QPR's training this morning to head up to Glasgow to dot the I's and cross the T's on a return to Ibrox. It's gathering pace, Joshua. As I mentioned, it could be announced as early as today. What's your overriding feeling?
I'm just seeing a lot of commenting on your Santa just over your left shoulder there.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
Not even December, which I like. Obviously, I mean, I think it's been reported by Sky and the Athletic that Beale is on his way up north of the border. So certainly some dependable sources there that suggest that, as you say, Derek, it could be done pretty quickly. Ever since Van Bronckhorst was dismissed, I don't think that there's been another real front runner. There's not been any other name that's gathered pace aside from Michael Beale, and it's always kind of looked like it will be him. It's been interesting to follow how opinions have followed the news that he is going to be a Rangers manager over the past week. I'd say increasingly people are more excited about it than they were this time last week. So Rangers have a few weeks before obviously they're back against Hibs, Derek, in mid-December. You want to get the manager in as quickly as possible, and as you say, it looks like that is going to be done sooner rather than later. So yeah, lots to discuss, lots and lots of content on the website. So we'd encourage people to go and check that out. Get the Black Friday deal, which it's £1 for 6 months at the moment, and won't be like that for, I think it's only a couple more days. So we'll have loads and loads of Michael Beale content on there, just as we did with Giovanni van Bronckhorst. So do go and check that out with the link in the description.
Yeah, I think it's probably the worst kept secret. I think it looked like Michael Beale would be the main man. As soon as Giovanni van Bronckhorst was dismissed, his name was high up on the list. Along with others, it's fair to say, Joshua, the likes of Sean Dyche was up there. Your man from Young Boys and Bayer Leverkusen, Gerardo Seoane, was muttered as well that a possible candidate. However, Michael Beale's name is one that is fair to say has been the front runner from the off. Now, there are concerns, and quite legitimate concerns, I would say, with regards to his managerial experience or indeed lack of. I know Ali McCoist has been speaking on TalkSport this morning, saying that he was talking about the experience and some reservations perhaps with regards to that. I think it is a gamble, there's no doubt about it. I think if he never had that Rangers connection, I don't imagine Rangers would be anywhere near a QPR manager 5 months into his managerial career. So they're going on based on his previous experience as a coach at Ibrox. I've listened to interviews, he talks really well, but can you understand maybe some supporters that are a bit not convinced by this in terms of the experience that he had at this moment in time?
Well, I don't think this is the biggest problem for Beale coming to Ibrox, Derek. I'm going to try and legitimise my point. I think as a manager on his own, public facing, having to deal with the media, set the tone, not let the emotion make the headlines, all that stuff. Yes, Beale's only managed 22 games, but and I've got a piece coming about this. There was a clip that went viral last season of Emi Martinez, who's the Aston Villa goalkeeper, with Argentina at the World Cup at the moment. And what he said was, it's the first time in all my footballing career, and he's speaking about Beale and Gerrard, where the assistant's done most of the talking, he's done all the training, and he's been heavily involved. And he actually said, we think of them almost as two managers. And what I think that confirms is the same, what we know happens at Ibrox, where Beale was given a lot of responsibility, whether that be with tactical decision-making, coaching, etc., etc. So if you take that point in isolation, when Beale comes to take this job, it's not as if it's new for him trying to set up a team in a professional environment, dealing with first-team players. He's not a coach who doesn't have a personality, and the questions are, can he be charismatic enough, or can he get buy-in from the group? Everyone knows how good a talker he is. So I don't think that's the issue per se. Yes, as I mentioned, perhaps in a public-facing role without the guise of a manager ahead of him when things are going difficult that can take the flak, and then obviously the coach seems to get a lot of the praise when things are going well. But I don't think that that's the main issue. I think the issue for Beale will be, can he be, I guess, refresh what happened by the time him and Gerrard left? And again, I'll include this in the piece that's going out on just my opinion about the appointment. He's spoken a lot in a few press conferences I've watched with QPR about the need for variation to introduce new formations. And if you remember back to the end of Gerrard's era, that was one of the main criticisms. If he can do that, if he doesn't look too much to the past and just try and reinstate what was kind of working this time last year, then I think he's got a chance of being a success in the future. But what I'm trying to say is that, yes, there'll be elements that he's not experienced, and yes, there is elements of that experience argument that I think hold weight. But this isn't a coach who has never led a team talk or a training session and has just been on his laptop in the background. It's not someone who hasn't worked in professional environments. He was away before even he was at Rangers. He was away in Brazil as an assistant manager. I think everyone knows the type of character he is. Yes, I completely agree. There is legitimate, I think, reservations or drawbacks. Is this the safe appointment from the boards? Have to cast the net out wide enough? And if it doesn't work, I think those complaints will be legitimate. But yeah, I don't think the experience per se is the big issue. I think he's had a lot of responsibility in the clubs he's worked in. I think the difficulty for him will be proving he's the future when he's coming from Rangers past and being able to vary and do something new. Because if he just comes in and does exactly what happened towards the end of Gerrard's tenure, I don't think you get buy-in. But if you can create an exciting style of football that's got little differences, then I think you can.
Yeah, so many comments coming in. Henry McLaren gets in touch. Hi, Henry. Hi, guys. Great to join the Rangers Review. That's for a great deal. Only at £1. What a bargain. Looking forward to be with you for years to come. Love all the review programmes. Well, that's fantastic to hear, Henry, and glad to have you on board. I hope you enjoy the content on the website. And this shows you how worldwide this show is, Joshua. Archibald gets in touch. Morning from Goa, no less. What a fantastic part of the world over there. So good to have you tuning in this morning, Archibald, or whatever time it is over there in India at this moment in time. Now, the Telegraph reporting late last night, it's a 3.5-year deal, Joshua. Now, some supporters feel that the new manager should be on a rolling contract just based on the previous manager, Van Bronckhorst. Of course, his contract was cut short. Normally, you find managers in this day and age, a 1 year or a rolling contract seems to be the norm. But Rangers, it appears, giving a substantial contract offer. What's your feelings towards that?
Yeah, we spoke about this last week. Obviously, we as you say, that's being reported, and we only have the top line of that. I guess to attract coaches, you have to maybe offer them more than 12 months. But everyone knows how much Michael Beale's wanted this job. I know there's been some controversy probably in amongst the QPR support base, given the comments he made really recently about loyalty. Ali McCoist was on TalkSport, as you say, today, Derek, and he was drawing similarities between Steven Gerrard's comments just before he left Rangers as well. So, but Beale's never made a secret of it. Again, speaking to him in the summer, he said no one turns down Glasgow Rangers, and that was when he just got the QPR job. That was literally one of his press conferences where he announced it. So I don't think it's ever been a secret that he wants to be at Rangers. I guess going back to the experience argument, the justified criticism would be, well, okay, you're probably not giving Beale, I agree, the job on what he's done at QPR. Yes, it's shown he can go out on his own, and I know they're seventh in the table, but I think they've been a little bit of a victim of their own success in the early parts of the season. Given where their squad is, their budget, I don't think seventh, just outside the playoffs, is by any means a bad start. But he's not getting the job off the basis of that. He's getting the job off the basis of what he can do as a coach, as you say, his connection to the club, because of what people see his potential to be. So why this year and not last year? Has he done things at Aston Villa and QPR that have confirmed his legitimacy as a Rangers manager? I don't know. I think it's more of a case now. You look at the market, you look where Rangers are at this point in the season. You need someone who's going to be able to come in and win domestic games, which I think they'll believe that Michael Beale can do. But I do think that's a justified criticism. He's never made a secret of, I think, how much he loves the club, how much he would like to come back at one stage. And if you remember some of the football that he was responsible for coaching and playing a big help in helping to produce, it was really, really exciting. Again, I think the big underpinning unwinding for him was that lack of variation at the end, the predictability where teams could see what Rangers were going to do and they never changed it up. I think he'll be sensible enough to come and do something a little bit different, but you'll still see those principles that will look quite different to the Van Bronckhorst team domestically. So is there another obvious candidate at the moment that would be better? I don't know. But as I say, I do think there's those legitimate criticisms of why now and not a year ago. And also, has the net been cast wide enough? But if Beale comes in and does a good job, then obviously all those comments will be put to bed.
Yeah, definitely. Let's look at some more of the comments that are firing in here at the moment. Archibald says it's just approaching 3:15 over there in Goa, 30 degrees. Wow. That's certainly not that here in the UK, that's for sure. Right, let's touch on some of the questions that are coming in here. Matthew Ross says we'll need an experienced group of backroom staff. Now, lots of talk about who Michael Beale could be bringing in as part of his team, Joshua. Lots of names been mentioned. Tom Colshaw, a possible return for him. Neil Banfield, I think is that the guy's name at QPR, first team coach down there. And also worked at Arsenal under Arsene Wenger. Here's another one. I've seen his name bandied about. Kevin Thompson. Also, the suggestions that he could be part of a backroom setup. Who would you like to see as part of his team? Do you think he needs experience in there to help him?
Well, I believe all his coaches in the backroom staff at QPR were older than him, Derek. So I'm pretty sure I heard him say that on his one of his first interviews back in the summer. So I think that recognises that, again, what the elements of experience that maybe he does lack, of just being the top man at a football club over a number of years, they can help balance that out. But what he does have, I imagine, I don't know this for a fact, but I imagine that at QPR he'd have still done a lot of the on-pitch training, as opposed to kind of doing what Gerrard did, which was allow someone else to do that and be more of the figurehead. But the backroom staff are so important. We know that because you see how much of an emphasis Gerrard placed on it. You see how much of an emphasis Van Bronckhorst placed on getting certain people in, Kerry Bowley and Dave Voss. Even though it didn't work domestically, there was still a lot of intention there to get people in that he wanted to work with and he felt could help him be successful in Scotland. So I guess all of that will come out in the near future. But I think, again, Beale will, I guess, learned a lot of what Gerrard did with building a backroom team that complements his abilities. So Gerrard knew that, and he said himself, I think the quote was, it would take me 20 years to be as good an on-pitch coach as Michael Beale, because that's how long he's been coaching for. So he got someone like Michael Beale in. He didn't have much experience as a manager, or he didn't have any when he came to Ibrox. So he got Gary McAllister in. He got a specialist in Tom Colshaw to work with the defence and with set pieces. He had Jordan Milson come in as the head of, I guess, as the title being head of performance, sports science, that kind of general area. So Beale, you'd imagine, has looked at that and said, okay, what abilities do I have and what do I need to complement them, and what areas perhaps am I not as strong in, and do I need other people to come in? And I think the fact that as I say, they were older than him. The entire backroom staff at QPR shows that he has that element of self-reflection and knowledge that it can't just be him to be a successful manager. He has to have a successful, team behind him.
Yeah, question coming in here from Neil. Hi, Neil. Can I ask you guys, you get notified if there's a presser called at Ibrox? How much notice do you get? Well, we've not had any notice yet, Neil. Usually we do with regards to press conferences. So, yes, as soon as we know, then I'm sure everyone else will know as well. We are expecting a few sources saying that the deal should be wrapped up today. Whether the press conference will take place today remains to be seen. I do know the players report back to Auchenhowie this morning. I can't imagine there'll be too much pitch work going on today, Joshua. I guess it'll just be a case of taking measurements and what have you. Various tests, of course, they have been off for a couple of weeks. But that will probably give Michael Beale the first opportunity to see, I was going to say his new squad. In a way it is, but he knows so many of these players from before. I think that is part of the reason I think he's coming back to the club. And I think some of the underperforming players, you could say, could this be just what they need to recapture the form that we know that they can play? I'm thinking Glenn Kamara, I'm thinking Alfredo Morelos, Ryan Kent and the likes. Could Michael Beale be the catalyst for them to recapture some of their form?
Yeah, to a degree, but also it can't be too much looking to the past. I don't think you can. I'd be surprised if you go and put Stephen Davis back at the base of midfield with Kamara and Jack, and yeah, I think it has to get that fine balance. Or maybe yes, it gets the best out of Kent. Maybe you see a better side of Alfredo Morelos. Maybe the squad, which I still think, we've still not that right wing position, which is we've talked about so many times on here, Derek. There's still elements of the squad that I don't think were quite tailored to the type of football that Van Bronckhorst was going to play.
Yeah.
Beale's football we know is more compact. They don't man mark, more compact on and off the ball, which I think will suit players like Tillman, for example, better. I think the structure will just be more suited to domestic success than Van Bronckhorst football, never really was. And by the end, it definitely wasn't in those games against St Mirren and St Johnstone. So you've got to get that fine balance between, there needs to be a rebuild next summer. There needs to be a real raft of changes with players who have been the core of this previous squad moved on, because that's just what happens at football clubs all around the world. You have to change at some time, you have to evolve. But can Beale get the best out of the players that are going to stay, hopefully? And then as well, I guess one of the big selling points he'd have as a manager is his strength in developing players, coming from a youth development background. Will that help to attract certain players? Will he be able to really get the best out of someone like Tillman or Yilmaz, as we've mentioned, Kent and Morelos? You'd hope so, but also I think you have to be careful about looking back to the past and saying he's just going to produce this again, because we know we've seen that with Van Bronckhorst, and we've seen it towards the end of Gerrard's era. And actually in the BT Sport podcast I've referenced a few times, Beale made similar comments as well about maybe the cycle needing to change a little bit more after that title win. So I'm sure there'll be players coming in January. There definitely needs to be an influx in the summer, but I guess you're trusting that Beale is the person who can make a successful team out of that, even if it is different players to the ones that he worked with while he was at Ibrox last time. Yeah,
and lots of comments coming in. Slubs, love that using the midfield is old and tired. We need new blood. And a comment here from Aldo: can Beale bring Balogun back with him? He's a player that still holds a place in the Rangers fans' hearts. Joshua,
move on.
Listen, I think Leon Balogun is welcome back at Ibrox at any time, and he's never had his love for the club. But yeah, I think that ship has sailed. But yeah, intriguing to see if he can get a tune out a number of players that are struggling for form this season. It's fair to say. Now, usually new managers do get a bounce, Joshua. You do often find that. So I'd imagine that might happen for Michael Beale as well. It's whether he can sustain it as well going forward, because Rangers do have some interesting fixtures coming up over the festive period. Not easy by any stretch of the imagination. I think the fans just want to see a bit of cohesion, a bit more entertainment. I think that's the key thing. I think at the end of Giovanni's tenure, that was something that I was hearing a lot from supporters, that Many were leaving early from Ibrox. Some even at half-time, they told me, because it just wasn't entertaining again. So you're hoping that he's going to play, as I've seen some people mention, that Beale ball. We've seen so many clips on YouTube and what have you, haven't we, of just ripping teams to shreds, particularly in Europe as well, where it was absolutely scintillating to watch. You're just hoping you can recapture that, aren't you, Joshua?
Yeah, well, as I say, Beale is QPR team. We've only watched a bit of them, but they generally look to play in that kind of similar shape. And I think he will recognise the need for evolution when he comes back to Ibrox, and that he can't just do the same thing, or if he does that, he'll have to change it up more. But I guess it's an interesting conversation regarding why he's different to Giovanni van Bronckhorst. I think on and off the ball, as we've just mentioned, and we've got a long read on the tactics section of the website. We'll have lots more in this if and when Beale is confirmed over the next few days. The style of football that he wants to play is different from Van Bronckhorst, a lot more compact on and off the ball, which I think will be really beneficial domestically. So often I think Van Bronckhorst wants to play with width and these wide wingers, which had its benefits, I think, in the initial sense, and certainly doing something different benefited him, but over time it wasn't successful domestically. Beale knows how to kind of implement that successful domestic blueprint. But as you say, Derek, 3-4 difficult games before the Old Firm. Rangers can't afford to fall more points behind. Equally, if they do go and get a couple of wins at difficult grounds, which Van Bronckhorst did this time last year when he came in, then it sets it up quite nicely to go and potentially claw that gap back to 6 points. So I guess there's some potential pitfalls, but also the opportunity to really build some early momentum with big wins, and then the Old Firm game on January the 2nd.
Yes, absolutely huge. Games coming thick and fast as soon as Rangers return on the 15th of December, when Hibs come to Ibrox in what will be Michael Beale's first competitive fixture back in charge of the club. Now, I wanted to touch on Giovanni van Bronckhorst's Instagram post, Joshua, yesterday. Classy message from the ex-manager. He broke his silence after being dismissed this time last week. And he reads that he said the opportunity to manage an institution like Rangers FC is a privilege which very few are afforded. As a former player, I understood the responsibility and magnitude of the task. My backroom team and I worked with energy, passion, and were driven with a belief that we could achieve amazing things. We treated our roles with respect, optimism, and determination. We experienced some incredible highs, especially on our European journey to Seville, winning the Scottish Cup for the first time in over a decade and qualifying for the group stage of the Champions League is something I am very proud of. The passion of our support drove us on to achieve those wonderful memories. For that, I am forever grateful to every single one of you who travelled near and far, spent your hard-earned money, and never gave up supporting our team. This season, like every year at Rangers, the first priority is domestic success. I understand the hurt when wins become draws, and worse when we experience defeat. That isn't acceptable at the club of Rangers standing. No one understood that and felt that more than I did. I faced unique challenges and some very difficult circumstances to operate in. Rangers FC will always be in my heart, and I wish the club all the success for the future. Once a Ranger, always a Ranger. What did you make of that, Joshua?
Agree with you, Derek. Classy. You kind of expected that from Van Bronckhorst, who, even when things were difficult, I thought always conducted himself really well, which might seem like a bit of a stupid thing to say, but that's obviously not always the case with managers. Intriguing that he references those difficult circumstances, because that could be anything. It could be something as like injuries, which obviously did impact him. Obviously, he didn't really make any noises about transfers when he was here in his press conferences. He always seemed to kind of back up the club in that regard. But, you know, interesting that he's put that in there, or whether you're just trying to protect your brand as a manager. But as well, you know, the photo that they picked, which was obviously the team's going out against Leipzig with that tifo in the background. That's, I think, in time what Van Bronckhorst will be remembered for. The fact that he got Rangers so close in that European run, which you know, we'll never be able to forget the significance of that and how all-consuming that was for a number of months. So much so that I think the league almost was forgotten. The fact that this, not forgotten, but passed over a little bit. I think there was some signs that maybe the football wasn't going to eventually bring the league title. But naturally, when you're getting to the Europa League final, I think supporters are more concerned with that. But yeah, I think it was a classy statement. And I'm sure in time he will be able to. He said, I think he finished it off with once a Ranger, always a Ranger. And I think there will be still good sentiment there between the two parties, but it just wasn't working. And that's why towards the end, when it was getting, the frustration levels were getting higher, you were thinking this can't really be retrieved because he's lost the trust. And for someone that is so popular and amongst the support, which he definitely was, and that always makes those situations a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it certainly does. And as Jim says, as a supporter for nearly 70 years, I'll always be grateful to Gio for the unforgettable Leipzig-Ibrox experience. You hear many supporters saying that was one of the best nights of their life supporting Rangers. So you'll forever be fondly remembered, Giovanni van Bronckhorst. It'll be interesting to see where he pitches up next. There is a feeling over in Holland that he will be part of the national team setup when Louis van Gaal leaves. Ronald Koeman is going to take over after the World Cup. He worked with Koeman at Feyenoord, and there is a feeling that is going to be the succession line, Koeman then Van Bronckhorst. I think that could possibly suit him as a national team boss, but it'll be interesting to see how he gets on, and I'm sure every Rangers supporter wishes him well. And as Alan McConnell says, amazing memory, Gio, always welcome back at Ibrox. Here, Alan. Okay, folks, the news is at the moment we're just awaiting an announcement from Rangers. All leads lead to Beale as it stands. Michael Beale set to sign a 3.5-year deal at Ibrox to take over from Giovanni van Bronckhorst. Whenever the news is announced, folks, you'll hear it here first on the Rangers Review site. Also, our social media channels. If you're not following us there, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also TikTok as well. And just a reminder, we've got our tremendous Black Friday offer on just now. Just £1 for 6 months worth of content. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to take advantage of it. It's the best ever deal we've had on. So, you won't be disappointed if you sign up. Okay, that'll do us there for now. We may be back a little later on today, folks. If not, we'll speak to you again on Tuesday morning. But enjoy your Monday, whatever you're doing. Bye for now.